Say between our generation and is there like a huge difference in the quality of education? Yes, there is a huge difference in the quality of education. And the difference stems from the fact that back then, life wasn't really as simple as it is now, right? And back then, basically, they make use of more of their brains than less of technology. And making use of more of your brains trains different part of your brain at a faster pace. Like, for instance, they had more memory, they can remember more, you understand? They can think more, like they can reason through things more. They can stay longer hours, focus on something more for a very, very long time. You understand? Without getting distracted. And not only were they sturdy back then, but they had the capacity to handle life, more, circumstances in life, more, grief, all these things that in this generation we see online. People just come online and start being emotional and stuff like that. You understand? And like, for instance, he talked about my dad. And for instance, when we tell our dad that I'm depressed, they were like asking, what do you mean you're depressed? What is depression?
Exactly.
You know what I'm trying to say? I was like, Daddy, I'm not feeling this. What do you mean you don't feel? What is feelings? I was like, it's as though these people didn't have anything to do with depression. You understand? They were trained to just do hard things. You understand? They were trained to just handle any second, anything life chose, just do it and stuff like that. And being trained in that environment made them more stronger than us.
Mentally as well.
Mentally, physically, made them to, think concretely, critically through any situation and stuff. So the question about, in the education, there's a huge difference. And one of the differences is that, like I said, they were more focused.
Yes.
Your generation were more focused than us, like far more focused than us. You understand? And the tendency to, divert your attention from what you're doing was less. Like, for instance, sometimes now when you're trying to, in this generation now, when you're trying to do something, you see that anytime it gets difficult, the first to reach out to is our phone. Just go through some online, laugh small, and go back and stuff like that. So that tendency is in our mind that anyway, if this thing is hard, there is another alternative.
Alternatives.
But back then, they didn't have any alternative. The alternative was that it's either you read or you'll be a failure for life.
Or you'll not make it in life.
Or you will not make it in life. Or you sleep under the bridge, or you all those kind of things that parents gave them back then, those days. So basically, hearing all those type of things is that I wouldn't say they actually walked in fear, right? Because in our generation, I would see it as though that we're trying to manipulate, they're trying to manipulate us into fear or stuff like that. I wouldn't say they were trying to walk in fear. I would say that they were working with what they had back then. You understand? Because they didn't really have access to alternatives. There's a lot of alternatives now in this generation that we can just say, okay, we don't have to do this, we can do some other stuff.
So basically, what you're saying that, okay, just to round up, what you're saying is that they had more zeal.
Yes, far more zeal.
Okay, now since you're saying they had more zeal, right? Let me ask you now. Then who is to be blamed now for the lack of zeal? Who is to be blamed for this lackadaisical behavior amongst students in the secondary school, university? They don't care about education. Most of them are looking for. But who is really to blame? Is it the parents, the lecturers, or the students themselves?
Okay.
The lack of the lack of enthusiasm for academics. Who is to be blamed? If you had to just point a finger.
Well, first and foremost, we have to understand it from perspective, right? Because in the educational system, it's divided into secondary education, university, and stuff like that. The lack of zeal, it depends on the stage. Now, most people experience lack of zeal in secondary school. Most experience it in university. I wouldn't say I didn't have zeal in secondary school because I was very, very serious, obviously. I studied and stuff. And the thing is that secondary school, and the thing is that I believe this also is the reason why even now when you ask most students, they say they were more intelligent in secondary school.
Exactly, it's what I keep on hearing.
And I believe that this is the reason why they were more intelligent, because secondary school sort of like gives that replica of the days before, the olden days, our parents' generation as it is.
Phones are not allowed.
Why? Because phones were not allowed. They were basically living in a controlled environment. You understand? So they didn't know what's happening outside. They didn't have any idea of alternatives. You understand? In secondary school, basically what you just do is that wake up by 4, bathe, go to assembly, go to class, come back. The cycle repeats over and over and over and over again. So the lack of zeal, it's the lack of zeal. When we're talking about lack of zeal, we have to focus on at what point do we say that the zeal dropped? Well, I think from popular opinions and from statistics, I believe it's in the university. Why? Because the transition from secondary school to where nobody actually prepared us to transition from that.
Exactly.
You understand?
So
coming out from secondary school, we had that zeal. We think that zeal will continue university. We think that everybody, like that competition in secondary school was there in university. But the moment you enter that 100 level, you realize that people don't really care. You understand? Nobody really, like, anybody is anyhow. You understand? You can do anything. You're free to do anything, that kind of stuff. So seeing it from my perspective, like, I'm telling you how I lost my own zeal. You understand? But it's not like a permanent something. So entering university, from my perspective, I was like, wait, why is everybody like this? So, like, nobody cares. You can't
the lecturer don't care, the student don't care.
Exactly. No, yes, the lecturer don't care, they don't care. I can decide to stay at home. Unlike in secondary school. You cannot stay in your hostel.
Form teacher waiting for
you have headmasters coming to the hostel to chase you out of the hostel, to go to class, to do all those things. But in university, the freedom. So one of the things that made us lose the zeal is that freedom.
The freedom.
Yeah, just the freedom to do anything.
Dad will always say that freedom is free but destructive.
Yes.
Uncontrolled.
You understand? Freedom has advantage, but it also has consequences. It's like a double-edged sword. You understand? So one of the things that made us lose our zeal is the freedom. The freedom of alternatives. In other words, instead of going to class, I can do this. I can do another thing and stuff like that. So that's one of the zeal. One of the reasons why they lost that zeal.
Okay.